All right, to complete this unit circle table, I'm going to start this off by helping you out with quadrant 1, and you're going to complete the rest by doing quadrant 2, 3, and 4. So you're using your unit circle here to help you locate problems on here. It might be helpful to have a little piece of scratch paper so you can kind of go back to problems to solve for, to write your solutions on. All right, so this is what I'm using to get me there. All right, first thing, I'm going to go from 0 to 90 degrees right here. And this first row right here, all you're doing is just listing the radians. So using this, my radians would be 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 2. So 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 2. And then you can keep going around your unit circle to get the other measurements. All right, remember what we talked about before with the unit circle. In the order pair, the x is my cosine and the y is my sine. So these things right here are kind of backwards because sine comes first. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in my sines, which are my y's. So 0, 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 2, 1. Then I'm going to go back and fill in my cosines, which are my x coordinates. All right, so let's look at our sine first. So the sine of 0, remember sine is my y coordinate. So the sine of 0 is 0. I'm going to do cosine while I'm at there because the cosine of 0 is this x coordinate, which is 1. So I've got both of those filled in. All right, then I'm going to look at 30 degrees. Here's 30. The cosine is the square root of 3 over 2. The sine is 1. Remember on this sheet, sine comes first. So I'm going to write 1/2 first. And then this is the square root of 3 over 2. Next one I'm looking at is pi over 4. Both of these are the same way. Y comes first in my chart. So the square root of 2 over 2 here. And the square root of 2 over 2 here. Then I'm going to go to 60 degrees. 60 degrees, sine first using my chart. So the square root of 3 over 2, then 1/2 is what I'm going to write down. And then at 90 degrees, the sine is 1 and the cosine is 0. So this is 1 and then 0. Now, really all I need is just my sine and my cosine in order to find all my tangents, cosecants, secants, and that sort of thing. All right, so remember, to find my sine, I use the y coordinate on the unit circle. To find my cosine, I use the x coordinate. Now, using our notes, tangent, we said to find it, we do y divided by x. To find cosecant, cosecant's reciprocal is sine, so I'm going to take that and flip it upside down. So I'm going to say 1 over y. Secant's reciprocal is cosine, so I'm going to take that, flip it upside down, so that's going to be 1 over x. And to find cotangent, I've got two ways. I can take tangent and flip it, or I can just go back and do my x divided by y. All right, so a little scratch piece of paper here to kind of help me solve these problems. So here's my scratch paper working over here to the side. All right, so let's look at tangent first. To find tangent of 0, I'm going to take y and divide it by x. So y divided by x. So that's 0 divided by 1. 0 divided by 1 just gives me 0. Still working with tangent here. To find the tangent of 30 degrees, I'm going to take y, which is 1/2, and divide it by the square root of 3 over 2. This is where I need a little scratch paper. So 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2. To divide fractions, I got to multiply by reciprocal. So here I'm going to multiply by this reciprocal. I'm going to flip it upside down. And this is 2 over the square root of 3. Now I'm done with that. Don't let it confuse you. These two 2's can go away since one's in the top, one's in the bottom. So this is 1 over the square root of 3. Now remember, we cannot leave our answer like this because we have a root in the denominator. So we need to rationalize this denominator by multiplying by whatever is exactly down there, which is the square root of 3. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom here by the square root of 3. So 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is really the square root of 9, which is just 3. The reason for multiplying by the same thing is because whatever's up under there is really what's going to be what's left over in the end. So this right here is the square root of 3 over 3. All right, next one should be easy. If I take y and divide by x, I'm dividing the same thing by itself. Same thing divided by itself gives me out 1. All right, next one, tangent. I take y, which is my sine, and divide it by my x, which is my cosine. So I got to go a little bit of work right here. So I got the square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Multiply by reciprocal. Reciprocal of 1/2 is just 2 over 1. So my 2's go away when I multiply straight across. Remember, that's gone. I've got the square root of 3 on top and 1 on the bottom. So that's just the square root of 3. You're going to see patterns happen in this chart once you keep solving it. Next one I got is tangent. I've got 1 divided by 0, 1 divided by 0. Oh, 0's in the bottom. So this right here does not exist. And you're going to see this pop up on your chart as you go through here. All right, next one I want to find is cosecant. Cosecant is 1 over y. So I'm basically taking this right here and flipping it upside down. Now I'm going to take 0 and flip it. Now remember, when we take 0 and flip it, remember 0 over 1. If I flip this upside down, it's 1 over 0. I cannot have 0 in the denominator of my fraction, so this right here does not exist. All right, next one. We're going to take 1/2 and flip it. If I take 1/2 and flip it, that just becomes 2. Next one, I'm going to take the square root of 2 over 2 and flip it. So that's going to be scratch work right here. 2 over the square root of 2. Now I need to rationalize. So to rationalize this thing, I need to multiply by the square root of 2 on top and bottom. So this right here is 2 on the square root of 2 over, remember it's just whatever's underneath there, which is 2. And these two 2's go away, which leave me with just the square root of 2. Next one, I'm going to take the square root of 3 over 2 and rationalize that. So I'm going up here. Scratch work, remember. So this is 2 over the square root of 3. I need to multiply by the square root of 3 to rationalize this denominator right here. So this is going to be 2 on the square root of 3 over. Remember, I just looked at what's under there, which is 3. And this 2/3 cannot reduce. So this is 2 on the square root of 3 over 3. And then to find my 90, I'm going to take y divided by x. This is 1 divided by 0. There's the does not exist again, because you got 0 in the denominator of your fraction. So it does not exist. All right. Go back, because I think no, I'm sorry. 1 divided by y. This one's what's wrong. I'm sorry. I did that one wrong. This one's right. I'm going to, because I was trying to do tangent again. All right, so right here to find cosecant, I'm going to take 1 and flip it. Well, if you flip 1, 1 over 1 flip still becomes 1 over 1. So this is just 1. So make sure you fix that one right there. All right, next we're going to do is find secant. To find secant, we're going to flip x. So let's flip 1. If you flip 1, you still get 1. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip the square root of 3 over 2. We already did that. 2 over the square root of 3 right here. When we flip 2 over the square root of 3, we got this. 2 on the square root of 3 over 3. You're going to see patterns happening on this table. All right, next we're going to take this and we're going to flip it. So the square root of 2 over 2 flip was this, 2 over the square root of 2, which rationalized just to give me the square root of 2. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, to get this one, we're going to take 1/2 and flip it. 1/2 flipped is 2 over 1, which is just 2. All right, next thing for cosine, we're going to take 0 and flip it. Remember, when we flip 0, we get 1 over 0. 1 over 0 does not exist. All right, last thing we got is cotangent right here. So to find cotangent, I can flip tangent, or I can go back up and just do x over y. That's what I'm going to work with. All right, so here's cotangent, because I already got my work, scratch work over here, and I can use that to help me out right here. All right, so to find cotangent, I'm going to go cosine over sine. So this is 1 divided by 0. Can't have 0 in the denominator of a fraction, so this does not exist. All right, to find this one, I'm going to take x and divide by y. So this is the square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. I did this right here. Square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. When I multiply by reciprocal, I just got out the square root of 3. So you see how these right here match. All right, next one, I'm going to take x and divide by y in this column. So same thing divided by itself gives me 1. To solve this column, I'm going to take x divided by y. So this is 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2. 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2. Remember, I multiply by the reciprocal, and I got the square root of 3 over 3. And then the last one I got is the cotangent. So I'm going to do x divided by y. 0 divided by 1 just gives me out plain old 1. Now, it's your job to finish the rest of this chart out for quadrants 2, 3, and 4. You're going to see these similar numbers, but be careful with your positive and negative signs going throughout this.